Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us to today's session. Let me tell what we're gonna do today. And I know if you guys have any problem, let us know. But so far, you should hear us and see the screen, right? Okay. Just let me tell you who we are before we actually start the open class. My name is Evgeny Kim. I am an organizer of Tech Meetup here in United States. I live in Los Angeles, actually in Irvine, 1 hour away from Los Angeles. I'm partnering with the company. Actually, guys, whoever was in our previous meetups, hit plus. I just want to see if you guys have been in our previous open classes or you have been in our meetup events. Okay, I see. Joshua, you've been in our events. Cool. Okay, if you haven't, just you can hit minus if it is your first time with us. Anyway, welcome anyone. So yes, I do the tech meetups events here. You have been in your meetup. Yeah, thank you, Lana. So we do the tech meetups here in the United States. All meetups are related to development, software development, and testing. And today we have a project with a partnering company, Autos Educational Project. This is international educational company. They already graduated more than 2,500 students. They have 30 plus educational programs, not only for software development, but also for product management as well, DevOps and data analysts. They have more than 200 instructors. Pretty cool company, really cool company. And that's the reason why we actually decided to partner. We're gonna do the course for front-end development for the beginners. And this is 1 month. Actually, this is 4 months length, 10-week course, which include 19 lessons. We're gonna do this on Saturdays and Sundays with 2 weeks project. So pretty much will be very similar to this one. Autos based in Russia, yes. Autos based in Moscow, but instructors are all over the world. And Mike, for example, he is one of them, and you will see. But last time we launched the course of full stack development, and it was way more advanced. So we decided to start with the next batch we're gonna do with basic course for completely new beginners. This is 5-week course, web development, which is include introduction to JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. And then we're gonna have a hands-on project, which will be 1 week. As I said, that's gonna be all the same on Saturdays and Sundays, like today at 10 a.m. 1.5 hour webinar, and we're gonna do homework during the week. Okay. Yeah, this basically course is just to taste if it's yours or not. Especially for new people, I know it is a big commitment actually to participate in a bootcamp in time manner and in financial as well. So before doing this, we decided we suggest you to try the basic web development, which is relatively easy and you can start right away. And if it's yours, then you can decide if you want to do a commitment for front-end development, which will be JavaScript and primarily focus on React. Okay. Are we charging for this course? For today, no. For today, no. This is open class, but this course, basic web development course, will cost $350, right? Which is relatively affordable. All right, that's pretty much it about my part. I'll give a turn to Mike. Mike, welcome. Please
Hey,
introduce
hello. Can you
yourself.
hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, Evgeny. So shall I take it over?
Yes, please.
Okay. Let me share my screen.
Meanwhile, Mike sharing the screen. Yeah, he is a.
Evgeny, you need to allow me. I still can't do that.
Let me try. Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Try it
perfect.
again.
Yeah, now it works.
Okay.
Cool. So let me quickly rearrange the windows. So thanks everyone for joining. I see we have more than 20 people. That's great. So what we're going to be talking about today is questions on JavaScript interview. And today we specifically targeting the entry-level interviews because I think we'll have quite a diverse audience really at the meetups. So today we decided to focus mostly on really like junior, maybe advanced junior or beginner positions. So we'll go through the common topics that you need to know if you're entering web development role as a beginner. Just for my understanding, and also I think it will be interesting for everyone, could you please answer in the chat for, let's say, how many years you've been working within IT, within software development or testing maybe, or UI, UX, some relevant projects that will also help us to understand, yeah, what's your background. I see. Thanks, Hugo. Thanks, Katie. Nice. Okay, Johan, great. 5 years. That's Dan. You're pretty, yeah, pretty senior guy. You should be teaching us. I think if you're working for 30 years, that's a commitment. I have a colleague in my main work. He works for about 35 years, and he's been in one company, and he knows all ins and outs. I can imagine. Okay. Yeah. Obviously, JavaScript is yeah about 25 years. So yeah, cool. Yeah, thanks for introduction, guys. Yeah, really a lot of feedback. That's nice. Yeah, quick word about myself. As Evgeny said, I'm one of the instructors on this course. I've been working with web development, also backend and front end for about 10 years. I've been teaching JavaScript and some specific frameworks for more than 2 years, working with this partner of ours, Odo's company. I've been doing workshops and speaking at the events about front-end development. So I'm pretty well versed with different front-end related topics. I also run meetups myself here in Amsterdam. It's one of them is about those that cool new framework which is called Svelte. Maybe you never heard about it, but that's fine because it's a lot of new projects coming up in JavaScript area. They become very popular, like on Twitter and on GitHub, and then they go away. So that's okay. Basically, I think there are mainly 3 main frameworks like React, Vue, and Angular, and that's the ones you should be focusing your attention on if you really want to get into front-end development or if you're new to it. But yeah, it doesn't really matter right now. Okay, so what we're going to do today, we're going to look at how to use browser as your development environment. Look at the DOM APIs, how you can actually do stuff with JavaScript to read and change DOM structure, so the tags, literally what you have on your page. Also, we'll look at some browser APIs, such as doing network requests and loading data. And also we'll look into how actually the data is transferred during the life cycle of a web page. So look at the event model. So for some of you who are way into JavaScript or front-end development, then something may be really familiar to you, but I hope for most of you it will be a lot of new knowledge. Of course, that meetup today is mostly targeting just to give you an overview. What are the topics that you should be aware of, should be able to explain. And in the end of the slide deck, I have some links to some good websites with articles, documentation, and stuff. So that's probably you can continue afterwards and just Google a bit more about the topics that are completely new to you. Once again, I'd like to refer our beginner course. In this course, we'll cover much more than we can cover in this one open lesson today. So it will be from a complete start, like how do you actually compose pieces to have a running web page, how you can make it interactive, how you can build forms, buttons, all that stuff, what you see usually in the interwebs. And then how you make it active and really start working with data, sending data, and stuff like this. So after that course, you will definitely pass the interview for a beginner or maybe advanced beginner role. If you're still thinking, I think the price is really interesting. For 4 weeks, it's basically, we spend more for groceries here in Amsterdam. No, it's a joke, of course. What are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about working with Dom and CSS and browser network requests from plain JavaScript. Of course, you may have heard that in the modern big front-end applications, we talk about, let's say, e-commerce websites, let's say Amazon, or social networking websites, which are huge bundle of various functionality. Of course, they're using some libraries in between, so that you're writing code like the one that is drawn here in a yellow rectangle. So sometimes it's called business logic, and basically it's the code that actually makes your app to do what it's supposed to do, and the features that users use, basically. And of course, to make these things work, let's say you have a form and a button login, or a button to register, stuff like that. To make this code to work, you need to also change the appearance and the functionality of the actual web page. And what I'm trying to show here is that the bigger your app is, the more complex it is. You can, the more you employ the third-party code, the one that is shown in blue here. So some third-party libraries, such as those popular frameworks, or some other less commonly used tools, to make an abstraction, to write more code in the actual business logic, in the code that actually provides user value and gives money back to your company. So that's real features, instead of writing low-level code. So if you are worked with other software development landscapes, you know what I'm talking about. So you're kind of building on the shoulders of giants, as people say, right? So you don't write everything from scratch. You just reuse stuff that was written before you, and that's totally okay. However, those libraries that you may want to use, they are not doing some black magic there. They are still using just low-level APIs, which are still available from any part of the code. And for good professional, it's still important to understand what are those APIs. You don't need to know them by heart, but you should be able to figure out what you need to use, because there is a lot of cases when, even when using high-level tool, you still may want to tweak its behavior, or you need to have some lightweight, really tiny piece of functionality, for which bringing the whole framework or the whole library is just useless. So what I'm trying to show here, what we're going to do today, is those dotted lines. Like imagine you're not using some framework like React or Angular or even jQuery, and you just do everything by hand, by writing low-level code. Why I'm showing this? Because again, this is important to know for the JavaScript interview, especially if you're in a beginner position. what usually when I'm hiring people now, we're mostly trying to hire mid-year to senior guys. But in this case, you have a CV with a decade experience and a proven record of work in the industry. You don't ask them those questions to them because, yeah, first of all, it will be a lot of time spent asking those basic questions. Second, you can trust the company, like HR agency that is hiring those guys, that is providing those guys, and you kind of saving your time by not asking those basic questions. But if you are entering the new role for you, if you've been a backend developer for years and you're starting in the front end, or you've been a tester, or you've been a UX designer and never touched code, and you're starting as a junior developer or even a mid-year developer, those questions will be asked. So I mean, there can be a case that people won't ask you this, but it's I would say it's not very good sign, because for the entry positions, it's important for the people to have some base knowledge, solid base knowledge that you can later build on top. So that picture I draw today, I hope that was a bit easier to understand why it's important and what it is actually happening in your browser. So let's dive into the topics right now. Also, if you have any questions during my presentation, please shoot in the comments. I'll be happy to answer and maybe dive deeper into some specifics. Okay, so before we start with actually exploring the browser development tools, are there any questions or things that were maybe need some more explanation or stuff like that? If all good, just put a plus and I'll continue. I see Dan. I don't see more questions. Thanks, Hugo. Let's move on. So we'll start with exploring the browser as a tool for development. Again, if you're doing that already, then there will be not much new stuff for you. But I can imagine it's not like it's not your usual time how you what you do. So we'll look through some of the things that you can do within a browser and what is also sometimes needed to debug, and let's have a look how you can do it. So for that, I will switch sharing to, let's say, I'll just open a new sharing, just GitHub page. Everybody knows what GitHub is, right? So I'll just use this as our current like working website. Imagine I'm developing this page now and I need to do stuff with it, like I need to figure out or fix some of its behavior. How am I going to do that? So for that we have developer tools, and you can find it by clicking right button and the right mouse button and find like inspect, or you can also do it with Alt Command T, I think, and then it should open something like this for you. I'll try to make a font a bit bigger, like this. So so this is all this stuff here is developer tools. It was I think initially introduced maybe about like 13, 12 years ago, when websites were not that complex, and at some point gradually evolved into a really tool that you really need to debug modern websites. So we'll go through some of the items here in those tabs and see how they work. Of course, that's not maybe always the way you will answer the interview question, but the question may sound something like, how do I test different screen sizes for my website? So I want to see, let's say you're doing HTML and CSS coding, and you want to see how your website will look in mobile, tablet, let's say specifically iPhone 10 or Android, I don't know, Android whatever 6 or something, or Windows tablet if they still exist and used. So stuff like this. How would you do that? And of course there are different tools for that. You can just resize the window, right? You can go like this and change it. But also there's a lot of opportunities here within the dev tools. So for this, you have this special button, if you can see it. It's like two devices shown, and if you click this one, you'll get into this markup debugging tool. It's not mostly for like JavaScript developers specifically, but if you're dealing with a markup, with implementing designs into a working HTML and CSS, that's one of the tools for your choice. As I said, I mean, there are a lot of browser extensions or like third-party tools that do the same stuff, and that's nice. I mean, if you're pro with them and you know how they work, it's totally your choice. But this is just in your browser, and I bet you're using Chrome, like 9 out of 10 people. So it's just next to you, you know. It's also available in Mozilla, and also it's present in Safari. So every browser has this thing integrated. So why not to use this one? So what do we have here? We can choose the type of device. We can go from this Surface, basically like a tablet, I think, right? Then we can choose iPhone X, right? That was cool a couple of years ago. We can see how it behaves. We can also zoom it a bit, for example, because if it's too big of a screen, you can just zoom it out and you know, see it a bit better. So that's also an option here. Or you can zoom in, and if the design has a very tiny elements, you can zoom in and hunt for specific elements and check how they work. What else? We can also put some custom size, like let's say I want, here you can see we can find any of popular devices and really look at the screen, how it looks with this dimension. So that's really for the starter, but there is much more. You can also see there are several tabs here. We will try to cover some of them briefly, but actually there is like maybe 20, and it's not all of the available tabs. There you can enable more in the settings, but those are more specific for specific cases, and I'm not using all of them. For example, I barely use maybe 6 to 7, but you know, knowing how you can do stuff within the browser is important to explain to the interviewer, like, yeah, I know my tools, you know. It's like if you master your tools, you are definitely leveraging as a professional in any industry. So as a developer, for you have two tools, basically, your IDE, your editor, and your browser. I mean, if it's a web, right, or mobile, if it's a development for mobile. So what do we have here? We have Elements tab. Here you have all the markup on top, and on the bottom you also have the styling. So for example, you can just where you start with the markup, you start with selecting an element. You can do it from console, we'll look into it later, but you can also like click this screen with the pointer button and then select an element interactively, you see? So we select an element, let's say this because it's a big title and it's easy to catch. And then it will be immediately selected here. And what you can do now, you can edit it in line. Right, you can change its attributes, like the class that it has. You see, I've removed one class and now it became a different color. I can remove or add some classes, right? Stuff like this. Also in the CSS block, I can also mutate its properties. Like now it's 48 pixels height. I can do it easily, 100, just to see if it fits better, or you want to tweak it a bit. So here you can do that. You can even create your extra styles, which will only be available during this page load. So for example, I want to add a style saying color is red, and it will do that because it's added here, as you can see, as an inline style, and it's overrules or all other styles on the element. And you can always disable it. What is also interesting here, you can press on a color and you have the whole color selection palette if you need it. So, I mean, this is like just bare beginning. We won't go deeper, but as you can see, DevTools can do a lot. So this is about the markup and the CSS. Let's go further to other items. For example, sources. That's something we won't touch a lot today, but it's basically where all the JavaScript files are loaded. And the interesting about it is that here we see like the site that was built and already prepared for production. So you can't really do much with it, kind of. But if you're working with, if you're running it in a developer mode, you can still see all the JavaScript files and debug them during the execution. So here is, for example, you can see all the resources that are loaded for this website. And here I found some JavaScript files specifically. That's what I wanted to show. What's interesting here is that we can, first of all, JavaScript files are minified, but those are, for example, here. It's you see it's minified to one line, so it loads faster. But we can always, you know, print it, it's called. Previously the button was here. You see those two brackets. Now Chrome added a big blue button, so I'll press pretty print and it will do it for me. What we have here, it didn't become much more readable because of all those, you know, shortened versions of variables, but at least you can see the structure of functions and calls and some of the details. So what you can do here, you can put a debug points, especially for the folks who worked with other development techniques, other languages. You know what debugging is, so you want to you know, catch the moment when the script evaluates, and you want to see what are the values at that moment, how you got there, and stuff like this. So for debugging, you use the sources button, and here you can put breakpoints, and basically for each breakpoint, when the browser hits it, let's try to reload, and maybe it hits it. But because I choose some script randomly, I cannot say for certain if it will hit it immediately, because it may be some of the logic that serves pressing some buttons and stuff. So it's it won't be always hit. But here you can really bind the breakpoint, and it will stop at the moment this part of code is executed. Guys, any questions for now? Is it going too fast? Is it some new information, or you mostly know about it? Give me some pointers, please. I'll continue. The next interesting block is the network tab. Basically, network tab contains all the logs for all the requests that page makes. And page nowadays consists of a lot of stuff. It's images. Here you see images. It's CSS, the styling, the JavaScript, basically the logic, the behavior of the page, and so on. There's more types. And what is interesting, and also these XHR requests, which are none here, but XHR is something that we'll quickly look also today. It's more the calls that are happening without a refresh of the page. So, it's said there is no those requests right now. Maybe I'll try some other website, but I'll do that later. Anyway, here you can inspect each of the requests and see the actual URL where it was loaded. You can see also the content here. You can even copy the details of it and execute it from, for example, from console once again here. So it will copy you the whole details of that specific request. So I pressed copy, and it copied it to my clipboard code that will execute the same request. So look, I cleared the log, and now I press enter, and I will have all those requests again, as you can see. Yeah, I think Evgeny will answer the questions. Please, if you have questions now, it's also fine. But of course, yeah, if recording is available, you can also ping us on Slack channel that Evgeny just shared recently. So let's have some iteration on this content. Okay, so this is Networks tab. We'll look into it later today when we discuss the part about network requests. Again, what are the questions here that may be relevant is that what are the resources that are present on the page, what is its size, what is the exact URL and the details of the request. You can say, yeah, we just go to the network tab, we go to the specific type of resource, let's say styles or the images or the fonts. Then we actually can look into that and see what are the details of this request. Maybe it's more interesting for the CSS. So here you can see the exact URL. You can look at the content. You can look at the headers. So all that stuff is available here. So this is about the network. And last for today, but definitely one of the most important ones is the console. So console is like you have terminal in your operating system, which is low-level way to do stuff, like all stuff. Console for the browser is also very, very important. So in console, you can again debug the code that you have. You can try to run some snippets when you want to figure out if that's correct or not. And it's something you really should know how it works. So if your developer tools open like this without a console, you can always enable it here. Say show console drawer. I didn't know it's for okay, so by pressing escape, you can actually toggle it. I haven't learned this this shortcut, but yeah, bear in mind it's easier than searching for it here. Okay, so console is here, and here you can type any JavaScript expression or code, and it will execute within the context of this page. So for example, we can do something really, really simple. Let's say console log, and it will output just the just some text. In this case, it will be just number 42. You can also put some text, not very realistic text, but still you can do that. You can also execute some JavaScript expressions, like 2 numbers or let's say 2 strings, right? So basically all the JavaScript you want to play with, you can do it here, right? What's interesting also about console, you can also access DOM APIs, and basically you can act like your script is attached to this page of GitHub. For example, you can read the details of this page of the URL, like location.href. You can get the URL of this page, or you can even change it and stuff like this. So it's full access to the current page, and also ability to interact with it. Console can do even more. Let's say if you have some, you want to output some data from your script, or from just want to show it, you can also do it in many different ways. So I think we're going pretty slow on time, so I'll have to wrap up this part about the dev tools, but I urge you really to check this later, and there's a really nice tutorials on Google developers website, where they go through all the things that console can do. So again, it's mostly the point here is to learn what your tool, what your browser can do, and also it can be easy way to answer some of the questions, like how do you do these during your development process, or how do you do that. Kathy wrote, can a person use Notepad++? No question, of course you can do that, but in this case, well, Notepad++ is like advanced Notepad, which is just code writing kind of place. But to evaluate this code, you still need to run it. And it's also possible, I guess there is a plugin maybe for Notepad++, or you can run just a script that you wrote from your terminal. But here you get it, you know, like really easier to run snippets of code. And it's also important that you're not just writing some code which just not if it's not relevant to this page, then it's no big difference. But if it's something you want to do in context of that specific opened page, then it makes much more sense. We'll look into this just when we talk about working with elements. You'll see what I mean. So the next part is what is the DOM APIs? Basically, in short, DOM APIs is all the functionality that browser gives you when you're writing JavaScript for the browser. Because initially JavaScript was written as a language that will only run in the browser. But about 12 years ago, guys from Node.js, they broke it and said, yeah, why not on the server? And it still runs on the server, and it's really nice tool of choice for some cases. And then, so JavaScript is not only for the browser, but browser is still the main place where JavaScript gets executed. And when it gets executed, you get access not just to the language features, let's say strings, arrays, data object and stuff, but you get also access to the pieces of browser functionality. Like if you look at my fancy schema, I mean those gray boxes, like browser capabilities of doing network calls, browser capabilities of doing something with data like cookies, geolocation and stuff. And you can still, touch those and activate those from your JavaScript. And this is the DOM APIs. Basically, the gray parts is the DOM APIs. So, so DOM APIs is some list of extra functionality that you can use in your JavaScript code if it runs in the browser. There's a lot to that. You really should check the documentation. It's like dozens of different APIs from simple interacting with page to like figuring out the user location, or doing a speech synthesis from text, or doing the opposite, like listening to your mic and really generating text out of it. Browser can do that nowadays, and your code can actually do that in the browser. So it's a really amazing time nowadays. Like 10 years ago, it wasn't possible. Eugene, what editor? I would recommend, highly recommend Visual Studio Code. That's basically front-end code editor reimagined by Microsoft about, I don't know, 3-4 years ago. It's beautiful, seriously. I mean, I code not only in JavaScript, but Visual Studio Code is my editor of choice for front-end project. It has a massive amount of plugins and various extra extensions that make your life faster and more efficient as a developer. So that one is my choice. Before that, I use like Sublime or Atom. I think you can still live with them, and I even have them installed. But it's like you slowly gravitate to one solution when you have, let's say, 4 browsers in your device, and at some point you find yourself only using one. So because you have all you need and stuff. So that's good. Mike, I'm not sure. I think it should work because it's. I think it's also even written in JavaScript, so it should work. It's basically Node.js, bunch of Node.js scripts, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah. Basically, it's cross-platform, really. Okay. So what we'll look into now is how you can create elements on the page, like nodes. Node, I mean like basically a tag, right? Like H1, P, button, and stuff. So how we can figure out the current structure of page and how we can mutate it. We'll look into this. And then we'll switch to events. So I'll go back to our GitHub page, and we'll keep doing something with it. So let's have a look. First on our list is actually getting the DOM element. So as we probably know, basically the structure of your page is a tree of tags that contain each other as a multi-level tree. It always starts with one root HTML element, then you have one head element which contains some extra parameters like title and some meta description and stuff. But the most interesting part is in the body, which is also a unique tag, and inside you have all the structure of markup. You know, all the pieces starting from a header, then to the promo block here, then further down also includes of the scripts, so all the logic on the page is included here as well. But what we're talking about today is specifically this HTML blocks, tags, and how we can deal with them. Again, what can be the questions at hand here is something like how do you find a node on the page? So how do you find a piece of HTML, for example, based on a class on the page? And you can do it in the browser like this, just by clicking and going through the elements, or you can go here. If you don't know where it is on the page, you can do Control F and start searching, like let's say JS/container. So you can find it here. But how you can do it from your JavaScript, that's the most interesting part, because we're still having entry-level interview, but we're talking about the JavaScript development. So let's look how we can do it from the code. And again, it doesn't mean that you will be running this code that we're writing now against somebody else's page. It means that imagine you're building your web page from scratch, and at some point you will have to create nodes, let's say a header, or you want to change text on a button and stuff like this. So you will be doing the same thing. So as an object, I will choose, let's say, these titles because it's easier to find. So how we can find this element? What we can do, we can, in console there is a shortcut $0, and $0 refers to an element that is selected right now. If I select, let's say, a main block, this basically the whole page, and I run $0, you see I will have the same, I will get the main as what I get back. But of course, in a real page, it's not always possible. So how can I find this specific H1 to do something with it? How I can do it with JavaScript? Does anybody have any function to call or API? So what should I write here to get a link to this H1 element? Anyone? If you have no clue or you can't type right now, please put a minus, and I'll just wanted to see if it's something that is familiar maybe. So we're not talking about how to find an element. Yes, Dan, this is one of the options. Thanks. Very good, Hugo. Yeah, okay, very nice. Exactly. So we can start with this. Again, if you're using some third-party library like jQuery or something, there can be different APIs. But we're specifically focusing today on the low-level code that works for everyone and that you may be asked about during the interview. So we're going to do a document, as Hugo mentioned, get element by ID. Well, this element doesn't have an ID, so I'll have to do get element by class name. So here you see in autocomplete list, and there are several similar methods like get element by ID, get elements by class name, get element by tag name, and those are the APIs that are available to search for an element. If you want to do something with the element, you first need to find it, right? Otherwise, you can't really start, shooting some commands, but you need to point to the specific node. So let's say we do get elements by class name, and here as a class name, we put some of the items that, some of the classes that the element has. So here, so where is it? I guess because it needs to be without dots. Sorry, my screen. Okay. So here I type first class of the element, and I get HTML collection with one element. And that's exactly what we need. So I can take just like this, and I'll get this element. And now I can do stuff with it. For example, I can change text, right? The most fun part. I change the text just with JavaScript code, right? Again, it's not like you're going to run this kind of code and change GitHub starting page. It's when you're writing your, for example, web page and you want to change a text on a button. For example, we have a sign up button here and you want to change a code on it, a text on it after user, for example, is signed up. You can, you may want to have like, here something like log out if the user is already logged in, right? So doing those kind of transformations. Okay, so we found an element by using this class name. What else can we do? We can use another item of this get element by tag name. This element has a tag of h1, and here we can see that if we do this, we get a lot of tags, a lot of h1 tags, and we have to find the one we want. Probably it's the first one, right? So this is another option. You can also search by other attributes such as ID, name, and stuff. But this is like the legacy API, which was there for years. A more modern one, which is also available for quite some time, is called Query Selector. This is what maybe you haven't come across, but this works much more straightforward from a user perspective, so it's easier to understand. It works exactly the same as the CSS selector. So you can say h1 dot, if you say h1, you get the first element, and the other version of this one is called query selector all. So if you have multiple, you will get if you have multiple results, you'll get all of them. And what is cool about it is that you can put the real CSS selector here. Something like this node has two classes, so I can do query selector all h1 dot this class, and so on, right? So you can pinpoint the specific node by using any of the selectors, like ID if it has an ID, or a name if it has a name. Of course, this node doesn't, so we don't have any results, but you can really use the CSS selectors to search for it. Everybody's aware what is a CSS selector? If no, please put a minus. I'll try to quickly explain. But basically, the modern way or the right way to answer is to start with this one, query selector, and also later say, yeah, there is also several other methods such as get document, get by tag name and stuff. Okay, I see mostly everybody knows, or at least there's one plus. Thanks, Elena. Basically, CSS selectors is what you see here. It's when it's with a dot, it's a class. If it's with a hash, it's an ID. It's like those way to attach the styling to the tag. Let's put it short. But it has like a bit more than that. But in short, this is it. So you can have different ways, like different flags on each of the tags. That's how you can make them look the way they look, and you can make them behave the way they behave with those extra CSS selectors. Okay, so that was how you can find an element. Now let's try to do something with it. First, for example, let's try to navigate around it. So we got this first element, query selector, first element, right? We can go to parent node, the special property, and we will get to one level higher, to the div element that is wrapping this h1 element, right? And we can go like this several times and finally get, for example, to the root. You see, we're going level by level up. Why it's important? Because you can actually, if you want to do something with this, not with the actual header, but with its parent element, you can do it, right? You can just go several layers up and then get this element. For example, remove. You see, now it removed the whole block. Now we'll have to find another victim on the page. Let's try to find this guy and continue working with it. So this is how you can go up, how you can add elements, because removing is easy. Also, you can remove from here just by finding an element and doing delete, right? It's pretty straightforward. But if you want to actually change it, right? So for example, here we have this nice button saying contact sales. Let's see. Let's first find it. Here, I probably can find it by some of those classes, or just find it by referring to a parent. So what we do with the document, query selector. So what is also nice about CSS selectors that you don't need to pinpoint the specific tag. You can go from top to bottom. For example, what I'm doing here, I am finding a div, and then inside of it I say A. So I want to get this div, the wrapper around the button, and then I'm trying to find an A element inside of it. Is that clear? So if I do like this, I will get the button. Okay, what I want to do with it? Let's say I want to add elements into it. Let's say I want to extend it and add some more text into it. So how are we going to do that? Let's say first I will assign this to some variable, so later I can reuse it. So what I did, I said this link to this element will be called button. So what I'm going to do now, I can, for example, create a new tag. So how you can create a new tag? Any ideas? We can do it in many ways, but if you have suggestions, please type in the chat. You can also use, of course, a visual method for this, but here we're talking about doing it with JavaScript. Yes, Dan, correct. That's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna do a document create element, and let's say I'll create a element P. I'll create a new text. This will be the new text that I will add into this button. It's called create element P. So for now, I've created a new paragraph element. You see it's empty here, but it's haven't been inserted onto the page. So it's basically not nowhere. It's just in the memory. If I refresh the page now, it will be gone. So the same applies to all our stuff in the console, by the way. So it's all quite ephemeral, and it only works until you refresh. So be aware if you're doing something, some experiments here to copy it, maybe to your IDE. By the way, there is a handy way to copy it just by calling a copy, right? So let's say copy this text is important. So now I can do Control V, and this is it. It has a lot of this stuff. Okay, so what we've done, we've created an element called new text, as you remember, right? And it's just an empty P. So now I want to add content to it. I want to put some text in it. Let's say text content says context. So I want to insert it into the button. So I want to say contact sales or ask us on the phone, for example, right? So I want to put this extra content into the button. For now, the button only contains this. It contains contact sales and a nice arrow symbol. I want to put it inside. So as you remember, we have a button like this. So what I do, there is also a special I want to add elements into it. You can see there is a special API called child element count, and the child element count returns you amount of elements inside of this button. So here we can see is only one span. So to add a new one, I will again go to button, and I say append child. So in HTML, the terminology is the following: every tag is a node, Also, the text is a node, but it's like a separate type of node. And basically, you have like a parent and the child relationships between the texts that are inside one of the other. So I do append child, and what it accepts, you can see here by this pop-up small window. It says it accepts the node. That's why we created this new text. So now I say append child, and this child will be this new P element. Let's look what happens. Boom, we got the P element here, and it was added inside of a button, right? Really cool. Of course, again, this is just the surface. You may later want to do something with this text. For example, you want to add styling. Let's say you want to do color equals again red, because red is very visible, right? So you see, you have this variable which is referencing to an element, and now this element is already in the DOM, and you can keep doing something with it, right? And you even may want to change its text again and put a couple of exclamation marks. It's still possible, you know. So that's how you can insert an element. And of course, if we can insert an element, we may want to remove it. And again, for that, we can do it from element itself. Let's say we can do just remove like this. For example, you have like a loading indicator, and while something is loading, some data is loading, you say loading, and then you want to remove it, right? Something like this. That's added. For example, here we have this block, and we want to add the loading indicator below it. So now I will just combine all the stuff that I was showing. So we'll find the element. I'll call it a container. First, let's find this container, right? Query selector. Here I need to put dots because it's a classes. Can you please give me a bit of feedback and measure from 1 to 5 how are we getting? Like if everything is clear and relevant, then it's a 5. If it's like you don't know what I'm doing, please put a 1. Okay, so I see a question. Then I'll get to that just in a sec. Okay. So what we do here first, I'm referring to a container, right? Now I want to put a loading indicator inside of it while some data is loading, and then I want to remove it. So what I do next, I do create an element again. You've seen those loaders everywhere, right? It's like a blinking buttons, or like some kind of a stripe which, you know, changes the color. So it's a handy way to keep the user engaged while the page is taking some time to load. I see Eugene. Yeah, thanks for your feedback. If there is any questions, please type them in the chat. I'll try to be more explicit about details. So we create an element. And it can be, let's say, another div. So then this loader, let's make it a style, like take the whole width. Let's say 100%, so it occupies all the space in this block. Then this, let's put some text into this loader saying data is low. Now what we do, we put this block into the container. So container append child loader. Okay, so we have this loader shown. What I forgot to say is we want the text to be in the center, I guess, right? So we can still do it. As you can see here, we can interact with the classes of an element just with JavaScript. So you see our element here. We have inline width as I stated it. Now I can do let's say style. Here is really handy auto-completion, so I don't need to type the whole thing. I just say text align center. and it will look a little more like with the design. Of course, it's far from a sleek UI of GitHub, but it still gives some idea. Okay, the data was loading, then it's done with loading. You want to remove the indicator. So how you will do it? You can again go to the to our container, and you do remove. You don't want to remove the whole thing. You want to remove only the child. And here you pass again the loader. And now the loader is removed. So this kind of can remind you the typical interaction that the page can happen. That's in brief the creating and updating elements. Answering the question of Dan, why variable has to be const? Well, basically we have from older versions of JavaScript, we have a var keyword, which gives you an option to create variables. But in a newer version, which was introduced in 2016, we have two new reserved words for declaring variables. It's called lep and const. And it was introduced 2016, and nowadays there is no good reason to still use a var, because var is ambitious. And it has a bit of different behavior compared to let and const. But let and const, you can clearly see that a const is something that you don't want to change. Even if you change it, you will get a syntax error even. So I have this container const, and if I, let's say, now want to declare another one, and I want to just put something there, I will get an error because const cannot be overridden. So it's more strict, hence more predictive. So recommended way to write variables is let and const, and var is basically a legacy that there is no good reason to keep using it in a new project. I hope this answers question. Let's move on. We have quite some stuff to tackle. Let's quickly go through the events, and I think for the network communication, we can just do it in the next iteration. So I'll switch quickly back to the slides, and then we'll again play with this in a real page. So events, in short, events is a model how web page pieces interact. There are multitude of different events on the page, starting with simple ones like click. When you click a button, you have an on-click event. When you move mouse against some area of the page, you have mouse over and stuff, and mouse out. So it goes like this: mouse over, you go away, it's mouse out. There is events like change, which are triggering when you changing something in an input field or a text area. So basically, when you're putting something into the form, you'll have a lot of on change events. And for individual key presses, keystrokes, you have the key up and key down events. So all the user interaction and also all the let's say network interaction is based on events. So your JavaScript code is basically just a lot of event listeners in the end. What it means that for any activity of a user or external data provider, you have some code which will do stuff, you know. So if a user presses a button, you want to load new posts. If we talk about some news website or social network or something, you have a button load more, and this button triggers the process that will get more items on the page. So this is kind of an example of the events. What is interesting about, so I listed some of them here, but I would say it's about maybe like several dozen of those events, and those are just some of the most popular ones, but actually there's more. So again, it's not something you need to remember, and not a normal interviewer will be asking you all the events. That's just not useful to remember them, but to know some of the key ones, like name events that exist on the page, that can happen on the page during a user interaction. That can be a question, and then you should be able to name some of them, and they should be pretty straightforward. So what's interesting, you can also, again, this is a bit above the beginner level, but you can say that you can create events yourself, you can trigger them yourself, but normally the events work the following way that the user triggers them most of the cases. Like I'm moving my mouse here and there, and that triggers events. I'm pressing my keyboard when I'm typing something in the input, or I'm scrolling up and down, I'm creating events. And whether those events are being affecting some activity on the page, like loading new data or highlighting something, that's up to you. And it's like by default nothing will happen, right? But that's like a feature, the behavior of your page, if you add some functionality. So this is in short about the events. What is interesting about the events is that the events not just happen on the specific element. Like let's say you have this page with a DOM tree, you have, as I said, HTML body, some main tags, some div, and somewhere here you have a button, and this button is being pressed, and what's happening is that it's not just event triggers here on on that button. It actually first happens on the main container on a HTML element on the root of the page. Then it happens on each of the subsequent tags, which are, the parents to that button. And then it happens on the button, and then it goes up again. So that's in 90% of the cases. So that's also, if you name the fact about bubbling events, that's also a big plus for you. If you're having talk about how the page works during the interview. So we can go a bit deeper into that, but again, that may be a bit out of the beginner level and maybe a bit over time. But if you just name some of the events and tell that you can create events and you can trigger them events from your JavaScript code, and that the events have this bubbling that they go from a parent to the element and back, that's already should be enough. How we can actually interact with the events, like as I said, to have an event is to have some code which reacts to the event is actually the functionality of the app that you will be writing as a JavaScript developer. So there are multiple ways to do that. You can do it in HTML by this on-click attribute, and in this on-click attribute you put a function name of a method that will trigger when the button is pressed, right? So this is a very straightforward and simple way to do that, but that's not the only one. And it's, again, what is the downside of this method is that you cannot unsubscribe from it. For example, you have I don't know, like a subscription form on your website, and you probably want to trigger it once. Like you have really nice content, I want to subscribe to your regular news, I placed my Gmail account, I press subscribe, then I get some notification, and then you want to disable if I press the button again. Normally you can just hide the button, but let's say you want just to stop sending this registration, right? So with this way you can't do that because it's already in your HTML, and you can't unbind, you can't remove this reaction, which is very often not what you want. So if you do the subscription through JavaScript, so you declare on which element this element is basically some JavaScript node, sorry, the HTML node, like the ones we were tackling previously on the GitHub page. So it can be a button, it can be a header, it can be some div container, whatever. And you can use DOM APIs like add event listener, and this will create this boundary bond between your event that user triggers and the function that will be executed. And here in this function, you can put actually your code which will do the work. For example, load data or show some pop-up or whatever. The nice thing about it is that you can remove the listener. That's the last line here. So that's how you can disable reaction to the event if you're done with it, if it's not needed anymore. So I see a question from Dan. Do we only use on prefix in the HTML attribute? Does on get used to some other places? Well, on is used exactly in a HTML attribute to separate it from other attributes, because tags can have really a variety of different attributes, and to separate the event subscriptions, if they're used like this, you use on, for example, on key press, on mouse over and stuff like this. But if you're doing it from a JavaScript code, you will be writing just the event itself. So let me show you an example. Again, if we go back to our GitHub page, I can just try to do it there. Okay, give me a sec. I will switch. So
can I give one more announcement?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, guys. Also on October 3rd, we're gonna have a mock interview for software engineering positions with hiring managers here in US. So if you guys want to try yourself in interview, that's a good place to start. Obviously, I would highly recommend you to practicing before that, because those people, they actually hiring. So that's just to keep in mind. But this event will be publicly available. I will post it in a couple, probably I will post it today. So just keep your eye on the meetup, in our meetup group. And that's another great opportunity that we are doing, is providing mock interviews with actually hiring managers that actually who is hiring. Okay. All right. Thanks, Mike. Go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. So what we're going to do is try to use this code to actually capture some events and see how it works. And after that, I'll wrap it up with some links that I would recommend you to check out about the documentation and code sample and stuff. So let's go back to GitHub page. Actually, why I'm using GitHub, because it's basically the most popular repository for code. If you haven't come across this, I definitely recommend to register and go through what it provides. And it's basically storing all the open source Git repositories and also providing a paid options. It's also owned by Microsoft from some couple of years ago. Actually, would be also interesting to know. Are you using Git? Are you using repository and stuff in your work? Or if you don't know what it is, or you never worked with it and stuff, please put a minus. That would be interesting for us to know. Because if you're a UXer, probably you'd never touch this. But if you're a tester, you probably get exposed to this kind of technology. So that would be helpful for us to provide a more relevant content. I see Dan. Anybody else, guys? Are you using Git? Do you know what Git is? Then put a plus. If not, put a minus. So meanwhile, I'll be adding the event listeners to the page. So I see a lot of pluses. That's very good. It's good to hear. Also, I think thanks to projects like GitLab and GitHub. GitLab is another one. It's basically a free alternative in some ways. People nowadays are using repositories even from the beginner level, and that's great. I mean, 10 years ago, it was not like that. Okay, so for example, let's take this title just to be a bit quicker, and we want to register some events to listen to some events when people click it. Why I'm not doing it with the button? Because this button already has some event subscriptions from the page code, and it will probably redirect us somewhere. So I just want to avoid that. What we're going to do here, I'll just find this element like I did before, again, by document query selector. Again, the question of the interviewer could be here. How can you add code that will run when user does some interaction? So your answer will be, I need to create a binding with the event. You can either do it in the DOM or you can do it in JavaScript. And JavaScript is more flexible and blah, blah, blah. Okay, query selector. Here I put this. Probably that's enough. Okay. Where is selector? Interesting. Why I can find it? Document. Because I missed a dot here. Okay, so this is the element again. I'll put a short variable name, but don't do it because it's crap to write variables of one letter. Okay, and then I do add event listener like it was in the document. I want to listen for the click event. Then I want to run some code. That's it. I've just created a listener that will react on my click. So I'm clicking and I get the event, you see? So what is interesting about this code is that I, during the event, during the callback, during the reaction to the event, I'm firing this function. Function is pretty simple. I'm just logging out the first parameter. And the first parameter is quite interesting because it's details of the event. It has tons of information here. It's also quite interesting from a developer perspective. It shows where on the page is the mouse right now. It shows if your Alt key or a Control key is pressed at the same time. It also can provide some extra details. So and a lot of other stuff. So that's how you can capture the details of the event if you want to do something with it. But if your goal is just to you know, execute some code here, let's say I want to load data. That's here I'm using the fetch API. We won't look into it today, but I'm just quickly showing. So I added the listener and look here. It will trigger the data loading every time I click the header. Let me show. I've cleaned all the logging, and now every time I click, you see it does this call. Of course, it's a 404 because I'm just pointing to some nowhere, not existing endpoint, but you get the idea, guys, right? So that's how you basically, in a nutshell, you can create API which reacts on the user behavior. If it's a form, you can be sending data, for example. If it's some content website, you can be loading extra data and stuff. So that's in a nutshell. And again, the nice part about it is that I can unbind from this event listener. I just pass the same attributes, and now if I click it, I should stop getting the notifications. Because I need that's because I need to put here the real function, not the whole definition. But that's easy to change. But by using the remove event listener, you can remove the reaction to the event. So that's really in short. Maybe I can quickly show that this event also will happen. For example, here, as I said, so you click on the element and it will go up to all the elements and then go up, or then it will go down. So to prove this, we can subscribe to a click event, let's say on the header or on the body, and we will be able to actually capture the same event. Let's see. Let's quickly do it. I'll just put 0 this shortcut, and it will be pointing to a body. And now in the console, I want to say this is from body. What I'm doing here, I'm listening to the clicks on the body, but actually I'm clicking this. So now you can see I get extra reaction, right? Saying this is from the body because the event happened here, then it went up to the top and then goes down. So you can clearly see that's happening. Okay, I think in a nutshell, that's end of the quick overview for the events. I actually had a bit more content, but I can imagine we have some time frames. Now, what I promised, I wanted to go through some of the content websites that I would recommend to beginners and to even media developers, just to strengthen their knowledge. I actually use them myself a lot. because you never stop learning with this IT area. So first of all, for the demos, I would especially select CodePen because it has tons of very nice, cool demos featuring everything. Let's say from CSS, HTML, special frameworks like React and stuff. You can find everything there. Just you can put in Google like CSS animation CodePen, and you will get links to CodePen specifically. There's tons of nice stuff. That's why I'm not adding some specific link like look at this, but you can just Google for it. The documentation, you probably came across Mozilla documentation as brilliant, open source, very well updated. But there's also a good one, devdocs.io. Also nice collection of all the important web technologies documentation, also updated. Of course, the Stack Overflow, if you never used it, just you should start, because it's like Reddit but for developers. I don't know. It's you can find really hidden gems there. You can ask dummy questions and nobody will. People will be helpful. Really nice website. And for articles, Smashing Magazine, I think is good transition point from like UI UX guys who want to start diving more into code. They have various types of articles, starting from how you have the UI working to how you make the code working. I have a subscription to their emails and really love the content. And the Dev2 is like a new guy on the block, maybe for like 2-3 years or so. They have tons of articles, a bit more close to the code and sometimes quite advanced. So yeah, tons of channels within the website. I would recommend to subscribe and go through them if you want to, you know, step by step build your knowledge of various development topics. So that's it about for today's webinar. Again, quick shout out. We starting a basic developer course, which will be run by me and my colleague Alexander. It's only $350, and it's only 4 weeks to make you really a pro beginner, let's say. So I hope you liked it today. That's it for me. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. If you'll be watching it later and you have questions, you can ping me on Slack. Slack link is in the chat a bit up. And yeah, thanks for joining.
Let's do a really quick poll, guys. This is very important for us. If we provide for you value of this class, let's do 1 minute. Just answer these 3 simple questions. We would be very appreciated. And then you can also ask questions, so we are welcome to get it. And Kat is asking, is 315 which currency? US dollars. Yeah.
Did I put it some strange current? No, I thought that maybe I made a typo and put it in some yeah.
It could be also a Canadian dollars, but
yeah.
Now it's just a crypto. Oh yeah, could be crypto as well, but US dollars. Okay. 10 seconds more. How long a class on the weekends? It's 1 hour and 30 minutes. Pretty much the same as today, but today a little bit shorter. Okay, we have 13 people already answered the poll. How long are they recorded? Oh yeah, of course, all classes will be recorded, but the value of these classes is basically that is a live classes. So we will do this not in the webinar, but we will do this in a Zoom meeting. So you would be able to communicate with Michael, Alex live with voice and like in a real class. Okay. Okay, let me share the results, which is, I think, quite interesting. We have So was it useful? Yeah, for majority it was useful. So would you like to open classes? Okay, for us it's a good indicator. So we are doing the right things. So on the next Sunday we will do also the open class like today's class. Mike, do we have a topic already decided?
Not completely sure, but let's share it in the Slack.
Okay, yeah.
I think if it's within the basic course, then I guess we'll talk more about the styling, like a CSS and the modern CSS solutions, frameworks. That's probably the topic, yeah.
Awesome. So guys, if you join us through the meetup group, follow our meetup group. I'll post the event today or tomorrow, probably tomorrow. The recording I will post in the Slack. If you're not in Slack yet, please join there. So we also Mike will share his slides today's slides in the Slack channel as well. So if you miss something or you wanna if you wanna do some copy notes, yeah, please join to our Slack. Let me post it again one more time, and then if you guys have any other questions, let me know.
Okay, thanks everyone. Yeah, hope chat with you in Slack, and yeah, join our next meetups and our basic course. Talk to you soon.
What is the link of the meetup group? Okay, I'll post the meetup group as well. This is the meetup group. Thank you guys for joining. That was very exciting. And thank you, Mike. I think that was really awesome class today.
See you guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.